What's the most underrated and overrated items in the long dark?
And that's what we're going to be discussing today. So, Kirk, what's your most underrated item in the game, or a couple of underrated items?
Let's see here. The first item that comes to mind that I think that is underrated and cast aside as being useless is something that I use probably more than I've seen anybody do in their runs as far as content creators go, and that is spray paint. I think a lot of people cast the spray paint off as being somewhat useless, and
Yeah.
I think it's something that newer players should adopt sooner. And I try to show them in runs and stuff like. Now it's changed a little bit since the customization thing of safe houses. You can kind of use the night vision mode, but I've used spray paint to draw out like blizzard lines on Coastal Highway between fishing huts to Quonset. So you just got to follow the arrows in the ice. They don't deteriorate. They don't go away. I've used them to actually point out arrows on the floor and how to navigate through Quonset. They're great for navigating in caves and that. And I think a lot of people allow themselves to get lost, or they allow themselves to forget that, hey, take a minute and use the spray paint and draw out your lines in the snow, especially on Coastal Highway or trying to think of another Forsaken Airfield. Yeah, those places. If you could give yourself little markers in the ice of which direction a safe house is, why not? Especially if you're doing a long-term run. So I think that would be my first point. Would be I see a lot of people go, spray paint, spray paint, and okay, yeah, if you're doing a 50-day run, you probably don't need it. But on long-term runs, when you're going to be in Coastal Highway for 50 days and you're going to get caught in a blizzard and you get lost, it might be worth the time to lay out, blizzard lines or whatever like they do in real life with ropes and things of that nature. So I think that would be where I would fall in. So what is your most underrated item?
So, well, we're going to talk about another one, so I don't want to talk about it so long, but I think the snow shelters are underrated. I don't see a lot of people use them, and they're good for so much: climbing ropes, doing hunting, making sure you have a safe spot between region transitions as well, or in big open areas like Forlorn Muskeg or, Forsaken Airfield. Things like that.
They are an easy way to substitute the lack of a bedroll in certain areas when you don't have when you get caught someplace and you don't have a bed. So it's kind of a strategy you could use early on. Like, I don't have a bedroll and I'm trying to cross this big junction. I should gather up some sticks and shred some cloth and have this as a backup, because it can make the difference between saving and ending your run, I'm sure.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'd have to compare the weight too, but I mean, like, sticks are renewable and there's so much cloth in the game, especially in the areas that you would really need it, like Forsaken Airfield. Go to the hangar. There's so much cloth there. There's cloth for days on any difficulty.
All those tarps and stuff, yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's a really easy item to kind of put together. The only thing is the time that it takes to build it. So if you're in a really desperate situation, you're like, let your health go too far, you might have waited too long to build one. But it can be a saving grace for sure.
Well, we all know that we never ever, wait till the last minute.
Right?
Planning ahead is wonderful for this game. Contingency plan.
Yes.
But yeah, I'd agree with you on that. I think that snow shelters are a bit underrated in that aspect. That they are definitely a easy replacement for a bedroll, especially if you're playing higher difficulties where bedrolls are hard to find, especially like Interloper and higher.
Yes.
Why not? So
yeah,
I like that. That's good.
Yeah, I like your spray paint too. I would agree with the spray paint. Spray paint's really useful, especially for me as a content creator, because I normally have multiple runs going at the same time. So sometimes it's really hard for me to remember, like, wait, did I loot this, or was this the other run, or was this one, or what? with what happened here. So yeah, I mean, spray paint's also good for that, for remembering what you've looted and what you haven't looted, and then like you said, putting it on the ground in case weather gets bad, and then you can just put an arrow and then put auto walk on and follow wherever the arrow is pointing and get to safety.
Yeah, and you don't even really need a lot of arrows. You can, you can kind
Mm-mm.
of see them ahead of time. So as long as you're aimed in the right direction, you don't change your angle of attack. You can follow the arrows pretty closely, and that. And I think about that a lot with, and you and I both get these questions, and we see them a lot with our Discord and what have you with newer players that get lost. I mean, you
Yes.
did a whole a video in your training series about how to navigate a cave and all that stuff. And part of that is you can use spray paint, you can use rocks, you can use sticks. I can even go back as far as just recently going through in story mode, and I'm trying to navigate a cave, and I'm like, okay, I need to use something. I think it was the steam tunnels actually, and I'm like, okay, I need to mark the floor so I know that I've been through this space, so I don't keep getting turned around. So there was a lot of just timber on the floor, cedar and fir.
Yes.
And I was setting them in front of the doorways, like, okay, I've been this way, don't go this way again. So I think if I'd have had spray paint, that would have made it easier. But using those items to say I've been here is perfect. And spray paint is awesome because you can just spray the outside of the buildings. And again, when you're a content creator and you've got multiple runs and you've been to places, sometimes you forget you've been to a place and you have to go back and look at your log. So hitting it with spray paint, if you've got it, would just make that so much easier. So something I need to practice what I preach, and maybe institute that more in the run.
Same here. Yeah, my next runs, I really want to try and use the spray paint more. And
I know
kind of
it works great in Coastal Highway. But anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, kind of to the same tune. I think an underrated item, especially for new players, is going to be cattail heads. Because you get a bunch of them, and I know after fire starting level 3, you don't need tinder anymore, but they have another use. You can make blizzard trails for yourself. You get a lot of them, and they don't spawn naturally in the wild, so you're not going to confuse them with anything else. So in places that are hard to navigate, or you really don't know, like, hey, this hill tells me I'm here, or this fallen tree is the sign for this, you can, while it's clear, go ahead and make yourself some blizzard trails to follow to help you learn the map and to get from point A to point B safely. So
yeah, that's a good use for them because you're going to get far more of those than you are rocks or even sticks. And you might even confuse sticks unless you do it in such a way that it's not natural. But I've even seen, I think I even made a comment in a recent video where I saw 3 rocks in line, and I was like, that's kind of interesting. There's 3 rocks in line. Was I here and did I mark this? So yeah, the cattail heads, you could position them to be like arrows and different things like that. So yeah, that's a great use of that after you don't need them anymore.
Yeah. Yep. So do you have any more underrated items?
I'm not sure if I think the snow shelter was a good one. I think paint is another one. I don't know if this is an item per se, but I think something that's overrated in my mind is the moose. I don't think that classifies as an item, but it's something that I understand the moose provides a lot of meat, and I understand that there's, like the moose hide satchel is important and everything, but I think the risk reward part of that is high. So when you're a newer player and you don't, your bow skills aren't up there and all that, and then maybe just me talking from, my lack of experience with hunting and all that stuff.
Being stomped one too many times, Kirk?
Well, maybe it's jarred a few things loose in my head. But it's one of those things where I think when you reach cooking level 5 and all that stuff, to me, it's easier to hunt a bear. You hit it once and it's going to bleed out, and you can go hunt it down and find it. It's going to provide just as much meat. You're going to be able to build a coat easier out of it. So yeah, I think it's kind of a weird deal that it's not really an item per se, but I think the moose is a bit And that's more like overrated. I think it's a little overrated. I think we were talking about underrated, and I think it's more of an overrated thing. It's
Gotcha.
nice. I've killed a few of them in my stalker run, and they're great caches for food and everything, but they were more opportunity with the rifle. I think if I was doing an interloper run, I don't know that I would worry about it right away because it's so much easier to hunt other things. I get where they're important. I get where they're important, but I think people make much bigger deals about it than they need to. So yeah, that unfortunately, I think that I said that incorrectly. You were asking about underrated, and I think that meant to be more of an overrated thing. And it's not really an item, but it's more of it's something I don't chase after all the time. I've been trying to do more of that lately, but yeah. So as far as an underrated item, I don't know if I have a second one, per se, but I'll turn the question back to you. What's another underrated item? Do you have anything yourself? I mean, I think we covered it with snow shelters and spray paint, what have you. So
I think the skill books are underrated. I see a lot of people don't read them, or they leave them somewhere, or they don't really use them. Like it's free points, like
especially early on.
Yeah, I mean, especially for like cooking. Cooking
fire
takes so long. Fire starting takes so long. Like, give yourself a little bit of help and read that skill book.
Yeah, especially if you're trapped someplace with a blizzard, you know.
Yeah.
And so many of us hate to pass time. So, yeah, no, that's a good one. I agree with you on that. So, all right, so I've put my foot in my mouth with the overrated.
Yeah.
And the moose.
It's all right.
So what's an overrated item for you?
I don't think many people are going to agree with me, but the hatchet. I think the hatchet's so overrated.
And I thought I stepped on myself with the moose.
Yeah, no, I'm going to say the hatchet. Leave it at your base. I know it's good now for like safe house customization, so leave it there and use it for that. Take a hacksaw and a knife.
That's like a super common thing for like if you're watching anybody play interloper. You get the hacksaw, get the hammer, go forge, knife, hatchet, and bow and arrows, basically. So if you were to play interloper, you're gonna skip the hatchet and just make a knife.
So I would make one hatchet only for Hush River Valley, and then I would leave it at my base. That's the only thing I would use it for. Other than that, I mean, yeah,
Hush River Valley Hush River Valley is a bit of a navigation nightmare, especially if you don't know those goats very well, which I don't.
Yeah.
So yeah, I agree. I think that would be the biggest reason to make it is those areas.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, and it used to be better for struggles, but now you have the cougar knife. So you can actually leave that weight. Like, I know everyone's like, oh, the cougar knife and the survival knife, they're so much heavier than a regular knife. But it's actually lighter if you're not carrying around a hatchet and if you're just carrying your knife and your hacksaw with you.
I could see that being a good argument, I guess. Well, we're all loot goblins when it comes down to it. So being able to take yourself out of your own body and look down and go, okay, quit being foolish and quit carrying all this around is not an easy task.
Yes.
So
that's true.
You're making a great proposal in that quit carrying this stuff around. If you can get away with having a cougar knife, you're fortunate enough, or even if not, I mean, a hacksaw will cut down most lumber, and it's almost infinitely renewable over a knife and a hatchet because there's only so many stones. Although you can use the milling machines in a couple places, but that's not always easy to do. Where any workbench will fix a hacksaw. So
you don't even need a workbench; it's a toolkit.
Yeah, it's a toolkit. That's right. So I mean, I think the hacksaw makes it easier to just carry that around. You can cut through frozen meat with it. In fact, it's a gold mine for Dead World run to have the hacksaw. So yeah, I think the hacksaw is much more important than a hatchet. So
yeah. I mean, the only thing you can't do, or the only thing you can't do with hacksaw that you can do with a hatchet is those scrub brushes in Hush River Valley, and that's it. I mean, and the hacksaw can do more because you can get metal, and it's better for frozen meat as well. So
Yeah, I could see where you're coming with that. It's
yeah,
it's a nice item to have. I've noticed that when I'm playing Stalker, I don't carry it. I leave it in the bases because I only need it to chop wood or whatever.
yeah.
I'm better off with the knife and the hacksaw. So I've already seen where I can put that down and just leave it in places and use it as needed. So I can see that. I like that. So
Okay. So do you have another overrated item, or just the moose? Just the moose.
just a moose.
Just the moose.
I think I've killed it with the moose. No, not really overrated. I think some things are overused, but I don't know about overrated. That's a tough one to be overrated because it's something that it needs to be something that everybody's got in their toolkit and they're just not utilizing it. So yeah, I think I'm gonna leave it with the moose there and
Yeah.
let
So
the
I think
chips fly where they are.
yeah, yeah. You're gonna get dogged down for the moose. I'm gonna get dogged down for the hatchet. But I do have another one, and it's more of a category of items. It's more the super heavy food items, so like MREs and Pinnacle peaches. Like I know the Pinnacle peaches and MREs, I think even give like vitamin C, but they are so heavy compared to what they give you for calories. So like the best two food items in the game are, aside from like the curing box stuff, are essentially the crackers and the energy bar. So I don't know, carrying around like dozens of peaches or dozens of MREs, like they're not.
I would have to
not that
say
great.
that's a lesson that I think I've learned the most from Dead World is stop carrying food. Eat the food. Your stomach is a gas tank and it acts like a fuel tank. It's not real life deal where, you know, it's half full, so when you find all that stuff, just eat it and carry it in your tummy and quit carrying these cans around. So yeah, that's a good one. I think that's a good overrated deal. I hadn't thought about it from that aspect, but yeah, I think you see people carrying around cans of stuff. I could kind of maybe understand like the soup. If you're short on teas or something, that I could see that, but peaches, dog food, if you got any amount of hunger and just eat it. Unless it's bad.
or leave them at your base. Like, I mean, carry around, like I said, the only thing I need to work on this myself. The only thing I should be saving to like carry on me is, like I said, crackers and energy bars and maybe like 12 cattails. Everything else can go sit in a base somewhere until I'm hungry enough to eat.
And just make sure you eat until you can't eat anymore before you leave, and then forage along the way, especially on lower levels. So yeah, definitely, that's a good one.
Thank you. So any more underrated, overrated items you have thought of?
No, I think I'm tapped out on that one. So I think with that, we should wrap this up and say that there are a great many things that people use or don't use that may differ from our own, and by all means comment on that. But
yes,
I'll
please.
let you close this out.
Yeah. Thank you so much for joining us for this mini podcast, everyone. We really appreciate it, and we hope to see you next time. Bye-bye.